Hello, everybody. It's us again, Oliver and Alex from Rock Kaput, and we're here to tell you about genres and bands that annoy us. So it's a pretty hateful topic, but I think sometimes you have to address those issues because there is not only music that you love, there is also music that annoys you.
Yeah,
So
and we are old farts, so we certainly deserve to or
yeah,
have earned the right to hate on stuff we don't understand
yeah,
anymore,
and
right?
yell at clouds.
Right.
Okay. Okay, you want to start?
Yeah, okay. So the first topic I want to talk about, and this might be a bit longer, is power metal. And to get it out of the way, I like power metal, at least the power metal that I think is power metal. But there
Yeah.
has been a shift in the last 30 years what this term really means. And let me dive into it a little bit. So when I listen to heavy metal, um, bands that were labeled with the term power metal were bands like Sabotage, Armored Saint, Vicious Rumors, Jack Panzer, um, mostly American bands. Manowar was maybe a more well-known power metal band. Um, Metal Church. So it was always a little bit of a problematic term because all these bands are very different. And what kind of yeah what made people put them together is that their music was a little bit heavier than heavy metal, but not yet thrash metal, and often their lyrics dealt with like um, fantasy topics or heroics, epic stuff, but that wasn't really, it didn't have to be. So there was a wide range of different bands. So they made this melodic kind of metal that was heavy but not yet thrash. So and like I said a couple of times, I had a long period of time where I didn't listen to metal at all. And when I came back to it, I realized that now the bands that were labeled as power metal had nothing to do with what I thought was power metal or learned back then what was labeled power metal. So today, um, power metal is mostly European, oftentimes German or Scandinavian. And I guess back in the day I would have called that speed metal or melodic speed metal. So it spans like Halloween or Blind Guardian, Gamma Ray, fast melodic and usually with a higher pitched voice. And most of the times nerdy topics around fantasy stuff and something like this. And in the last couple of years, this kind of emerged, and nowadays we have a kind of subgenre in power metal um, that I have a hard time to accept this as metal. And I don't want to gatekeep, so everyone who likes this stuff, okay, but to me it lacks what I like about metal. And there are bands like Battle Beast, Beast in Black, Power Wolf. The band names annoy me because it sounds like I don't know, nerdy children's stuff. Um, Glory Hammer, Angus McSix, Victorious, Aeon Gods, Fellowship, Windrose, and these bands do this ultra melodic, mostly fast stuff. It's almost symphonic, so it's always very there's a lot of pathos in this music. It's very epic, and it's ridiculously overproduced. So with a lot of these bands, it's almost like synth pop or German Schlager music. Sometimes it really reminds me of what Helene Fischer is doing, who is a big star in Germany in doing this Schlager music. So you have synthes very very much in the front, so you almost don't hear any guitars anymore with these bands. And if you do, these guitars are heavily processed. There's absolutely no grit or dirt to them anymore. The music sounds super polished. You have these very hooky melodies. So I wouldn't say these guys are they know the guys who are doing this, they know what they're doing, right? So they can write hooks and stuff, but the melodies are always very cheesy. um, and then they all have they oftentimes they have this image for themselves, so they go on stage with like costumes, I guess Ghost may be a forebear of this kind of style. And yeah, they take these influences from the 80s, when you had bands like Running Wild who were like costuming as pirates, but still playing a pretty rough hard rock sound with speed metal influences. Or you had Manowar, who are of course dressing up in these leather gear, and very muscular guys singing about Vikings and stuff. Um, these bands do similar things, but they almost they bring kind of humor into it. And I certainly understand why Manowar and stuff like that is inherently comical. But in the moment where you make it obvious and say, well, this is fun, and you all do it with a wink, I think it completely loses its yeah, what makes it attractive and fun. Because now it seems all very ironic and haha, look at the stupid music we are playing, and we are all really meaning it and stuff. Um, so this, I listened today, just to get in the mood. I listened to a couple of those, and like I said, while I can see the technical proficiency that's involved with it, the sound really, I don't understand it at all. For me, it's metal for people who don't like metal. It's all this metal. It's this funny music where the guys are all muscular and singing about Vikings, and so a band like Angus Mac 6, they are singing about dinosaurs with laser guns attached to them, and stuff like that. And it's all this hyperactive uh, carnival music, and it drives me crazy. And they are pretty successful, these bands. So like Battle Beast and Beast in Black, they have a couple of million of listens each month. Power Wolf is also pretty. They come from Germany. They're also pretty famous. They do a bit more like, like this horror and gothic influence stuff. So it's a bit darker, but still very synth driven, and these annoying melodies. So I don't get this music at all. It gives me ear cancer, really, because it's so polished and processed. Um, and it all sounds completely artificial. I don't get it, and I can understand why this might be fun for a couple of listens, and maybe there's a band that's a bit better than the other. But I don't understand it. I really don't. And to me, this is not what's metal. Metal is supposed to be loud and kind of rebellious, and of course sometimes it's stupid and cheesy. But I don't like this stuff at all. In whatever the kind of art it is, I don't like that in movies, in literature. You got to have the balls to mean what you are doing, and not make it all with tongue in cheek. I think then it gets kind of, yeah. That's not honest anymore to me.
Right. And I mean, I think I don't really know the bands you're talking about, to be honest, but I think it's not really possible to do a parody of Manowar. The
Yeah,
original would always be much superior. If
yeah.
you find it funny, go to a Manowar show. I mean, If
yeah,
it doesn't matter if it's meant ironic or not by them.
yeah,
I mean,
and
at least a little bit irony must be in there, I think,
and I think
in the
so,
original.
but I think Manowar made the mistake that they at a certain point they kind of admitted that it was a joke,
Oh,
and they kind of built upon that. So in that moment, I completely lost interest in that band. Because their first albums are still pretty heavy, and like an album like Hail to England and Into Glory Ride, it's not that polished, so the production is pretty low-fi, you could say. It sounds
mhm.
very dirty and dark. Um, and they were singing about all the stuff that they were singing later on, but there was a certain edge to it, and later on it was all just a joke. And I admit that it's kind of that it was silly from the start, but in the moment where they are kind of agreeing and admitting that it's a
Yeah.
joke, I think it's yeah. I don't need. I have a problem with jokey music in general. I mean, you can have witty lyrics and humorous lyrics, but the core has to be honest, I think.
Yeah, I mean, such a joke gets old. Even if you like the joke, it gets
Yeah,
fast. It gets old so quickly.
yeah,
So, yeah, I totally get what you're
yeah,
after.
yeah. So and I guess it's a long this is a long development. I guess it started in the late 90s. I talked about that a couple of times, in the 90s when metal was kind of uncool and all these bands were pulling in outside influences. And then in the late 90s, there was this backlash and bands kind of embracing all the cliches. And I think that was the point where this irony came into play.
Yeah.
Because they all said, well, okay, we can wear these stupid costumes, but it's all fun, we don't really mean it, like bands like Hammerfall and stuff like
Yes.
that. And I think that's what these bands are building on. And Hammerfall annoyed me back in the day. And these bands who are like third level of this kind of shit, they, they can do their stuff. I don't need to listen to that.
Yeah.
Sabaton is a band that's also in that they have a bit, they have these war
Yes.
themes
War
going
themes.
on,
Yeah.
but when you listen to them, you only hear synthes, and the guitar is way in the back. So I don't understand this kind of music. If I want to listen to metal, I want to hear guitars and drums, and not kind of these wimpy synthy sounds. And I don't
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with synthes, but yeah, metal should be driven by guitars, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Okay. So my first pick is a band that is hated by some, but also very beloved. It is this one. I even I own a record of them, and I like a little bit of them, but I've also found them very annoying. Some fans might agree to a little bit. So, I mean, with Kiss is a lot of my heroes from the 90s. Yeah, I read about them, and they almost all of them were or are big Kiss fans. And when some musician I adore says something like this, I always pay attention and try to understand where they are coming from. And I always tried to understand Kiss. I started with this album, and I mean, the lyrics sometimes are so stupid, really on a level I can't bear anymore. I think these are rock stars. Come on, couldn't you do a little bit better? I mean, some songs are great. I admit that, but overall, I to me I wouldn't call this band great. They are good. Sometimes they are very good. They have some great songs, but I don't see the greatness of this whole band, and they fight with each other all the time. I mean, yeah, lots of good bands have that in common with Kiss, But yeah, and in every interview Gene Simmons gives, he annoys the shit out of a lot of people. So
Yeah,
probably on purpose, I
yeah, I
think.
guess so.
But yeah, and sometimes, yeah, I don't know. I don't really get why they are so big. Yeah, I appreciate them for a few things. I mean, they realized very early on how important the visual image is of a band, and I think they are the best band that created a visual image that worked so well. But I don't think, or I still don't get it. I don't think the music is as good as their reputation. I don't
Yeah, I
know.
guess the packaging was very important in the 70s, and that's when a lot of these bands, um, I- like a band like Weezer, I guess Rivers Cuomo was a kid back in the 70s, and I was a kid when I first saw images of Kiss. I had no idea how the music sounded, but that left a lasting impression on me as well. So,
Mm,
and I guess in the 70s, a lot of their fans were kids. I mean, they were
yeah, I think.
marketed for kids with all the toys attached to it and merchandising and lunch boxes and stuff like that. Um, so I guess for a lot of people in our age, Kiss was one of the first favorite bands, and a band that they had for their own and didn't have to share with their brothers or something like that. Um, so I guess that comes into play and is so you like them um, like despite their music maybe. Although I think that in the
Yeah,
70s they I like their 70s albums. I mean I love Kiss. But I wouldn't necessarily disagree with your take. The lyrics are stupid, um, but that also makes them fun, I guess. And yeah, in the 80s and later on, their records left a lot to be desired. But yeah, you by then you kind of had this attachment to the band, so it didn't really matter. And they still, on all their albums, they have a couple of songs that are pretty catchy and nice. But yeah, I totally understand why they can be annoying, and I totally agree on Gene Simmons. I mean, he's a douchebag, right wing idiot. So, and yeah, I guess he likes playing this role where he pisses other people off and flaunts his money and his power and clout and I don't know what. Um, yeah, he's definitely not a likable guy. I can't stand his voice anymore. So most of the songs that he sings, I can't listen to.
mm, yeah. Probably I was introduced too late to Kiss, where I was too old. And maybe you also had to be there in the 70s to fully understand their impact. But to me, I don't see that much substance in the music that their music should live on for ages. I don't know. The visuals will, I'm sure.
Yeah,
But yeah, to me, they are still not a great band. I'm sorry. So,
yeah, that's
yeah.
that's that's a valid opinion. So um, like I said, a couple of their songs in the 70s are classics. In my opinion, Detroit Rock City is an all-time classic hard rock song. There's nothing to argue about. I guess you would agree.
Yes, yes.
But yeah, of course, they were playing simple hard rock and roll, and what made them stand out was the packaging. So yeah. Okay, so another genre I want to talk about is yeah. Let's start with death metal, because I love death metal, but death metal is a genre that is um, so ridiculously categorized into I don't know hundred thousands of subgenres, and that alone is to me is stupid. I mean, there's a genre called old school death metal, which refers to, of course, death metal from the late 80s to the mid 90s. But then in that time frame, uh, death metal, yeah, already developed into different sounds. So you can't say that these bands all sounded the same and that there was this classic old school death metal sound. I mean, so yeah, there a band like Suffocation was Miles, whose debut came out in '91. They were miles removed from what Death were doing 3 years prior on Leprosy. So what makes this a genre is kind of a time frame that these bands have in common. But then there's newer bands that are old school death metal because they are supposedly playing a kind of death metal that sounds like back in the day when all these bands had different sounds. So you had Swedish death metal, you had like Cannibal Corpse who were playing this very fast death metal. You had like a band like Death who were more technical. So this is stupid to me. And then it gets way more absurd with labels like brutal death metal, where I think, well, that's what death metal is supposed to sound like, right? It's supposed to sound brutal. So what is brutal death metal? What makes it different than death metal? And then, of course, it's even lower growls. And I don't think with the extremes that this has taken with these low growls, it just sounds stupid, right? It doesn't sound brutal because oftentimes it sounds like someone is flushing his toilet and there's not a vocalist involved, but someone who's flushing a toilet. Or I don't know what kitchen advice he's switching on, to make these sounds. It's yeah. So brutal death metal oftentimes isn't brutal at all. It's just ridiculous. So, and then you have like a label, and here then you have brutal technical death metal. So these are bands that are supposed to be very proficient on their instruments and have someone flushing the toilet. So yeah, just just stupid because I mean death metal in general is technically, it isn't easy to play this kind of music. So it's technical per se most of the time. And then the worst of it all is slamming brutal death metal. So this is a kind of death metal that is supposed to invoke a certain movement in the mosh pit, right? So this is music that switches between this ultra fast, almost grindcore like blast beat drumming, and then these breakdowns. And I was at a festival for this music, and when the music gets very fast, and the guy with the mic is flushing the toilet. Um, of course, you can't bang to this kind of sound because it's not physically not possible, and you can't really dance to it or move to it. So what they are doing is this: they are standing and doing this in the air when
Mm.
it's fast, yeah. And then when the breakdowns come, they are going in circles like this,
Hmm.
and I mean it's fun to watch it from afar.
Kind of cutting the
The
beat.
the vocalists, like I said, they are sounding either like flushing the toilet, or then they have these, it's called pig squeals. So in between, to make it a little bit more versatile, they are kind of squealing, and sometimes they are burping. So you have these burping sounds, and sometimes it all gets mixed together. And what's
Yeah.
also annoying about this kind of music, when you look at the cover artworks and the band names, so it's all very influenced by these. I guess the first band to do that was probably Carcass on their first album. So you have these very kind of band names and lyrics with these medical or pseudo medical terms involved. involved. It's all dealing with the splatter and gore and sometimes porn stuff. So there's a genre called porn grind, which is basically gore grind, but instead of singing about chopping people up, you are singing about rape and stuff like that. So pretty disgusting stuff. And yeah, the covers of these so they all have these weird band names that are either completely and logos you can't decipher anymore. Weird band names and these very colorful cover artworks that are all depicting the craziest, most splattery shit you can imagine. So it's the worst of it is I think it's inherently misogynistic because there are lots of these bands are just doing nothing in their lyrics but depicting how they are kind of murdering women and molesting them and stuff like that. So it's pretty disgusting, and they all sound the same. So it's really this. To me, it's kind of in German. I used to call music like that Gebrauchsmusik. So it's music that is there for a certain kind of activity. You don't really listen to it, but it's supposed to make you move in a certain way. And it's really streamlined for this and this. And a couple of times I tried to get into this music and understand it and thinking maybe there's one band that's better than the other. Um, but and there are millions of bands doing this. It's crazy. Or when you go on Bandcamp and you look for slamming brutal death metal, and they're coming from all around the world. It's really crazy. And yeah, but okay. My body doesn't do this anymore. So maybe,
Yeah, sounds strange to me.
yeah,
Don't think I would like it.
no, no. Maybe you should listen to it once to see how a record full of toilet flushing and burping sounds.
Yes, maybe. My next pick is yeah, the genre is kind of a loose term. Is a fourth wave grunge. I mean, we all know after Nirvana, Soundgarden, and so on, there were many bands that kind of imitated this style in a more commercial way, and that was very annoying to me. And one of the most annoying, maybe there are others, to me was Puddle of Mud, because they had, to me, no integrity at all, no originality. So everything that made grunge so great was missing. I mean, integrity was with grunge really such a big part of the bands, and it was so obvious they were trying to sell a band in this style. Yeah, they looked kind of like someone from Seattle. He tried to imitate Eddie Vedder, even though their first hit was more sounded more like a punk hit, but sung with a grunge voice. Yeah, they sounded more like a bad Green Day song, I would say. And the music felt super calculated to me, and I really hated this.
Yeah, I remember I owned an album by them. I don't know, probably I fell for one of their hits, and I don't know. But it was at a time where I was buying CDs left and right just to buy something. Or another band that, and I remember liking a couple of songs by them, but they also fall into this genre are Stained.
Yes.
So yeah, and of course the biggest one probably was Creed, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, but for some reason, Puddle of Mud and Stained annoyed me more. Yeah, I don't know. I think Creed had I mean, I'm not a big fan of Creed, but I think they at least had a little bit originality. a little bit more to me than Stained or Puddle of Mud,
Muddle
because
of Put.
Muddle of Mud, whatever, because they kind of had music for them was kind of like a celebration. Yeah, they had kind of positive feelings. I would say they were not in a certain way. They were not imitating the grunge bands. Because I mean, of course, their singer, how was he
Scott
called?
Stapp.
Scott Stapp. I mean, of course, he was imitating Eddie Vedder, but I think he also had a little bit of originality in his voice and how he sang. So
Yeah,
I did not like them, but I thought, okay, this kind of is a band that has a little bit of their own identity. It's not my thing, but I respected them more than Puddle of Mud and then Stand.
yeah.
So
I think I guess also their lyrics, they were going for a little bit of, yeah, weren't Creed openly Christian? I guess so, right?
maybe yes.
I think so, and I guess that Scott Stapp was really meaning this. I don't
Yeah.
think there was anything calculated about them, maybe except for their sound, but yeah, I would agree that, but that made them even more embarrassing to me. You know, that they were so earnest with these, and the lyrics at that point, what was with the first wave grunge bands was kind of new. All of a sudden, these kind of lyrics, these introspective lyrics and angsty lyrics, they became like a cliche, and that's
Yes.
what made Puddle of Mud and Stain so annoying. So they were sitting on these bar stools with their acoustic guitars and singing how much pain they are feeling every
Yes.
day. And yeah, yeah, right, yeah. But yeah, that was kind of the last gasp of rock music in the early 2000s, right? So
Yes. Yes.
of course we had these garagey type bands that came a couple of years later with the Strokes and all these bands that were bringing a little bit more integrity back to the
Yeah.
music, but that wasn't going to last as well. So
Yeah. Yeah. And it was kind of a different genre because it
yeah,
wasn't heavy rock. It was
yeah, of course,
more, yeah.
yeah, yeah. But that was the last time that rock music was any
Yes.
popular
Yeah.
in the
Right.
broader spectrum.
Yeah.
So we'll see if that will change one day again.
Yeah. Hopefully, it has to.
Ah,
Hmm?
but yeah, maybe I see that a lot of younger people, they don't have any interest in guitars or the sound of guitars, and they don't. Back when we were kids, you still could hear this kind of sound. Today, I mean, they would need someone to introduce them to that kind of music, right? Because you don't hear it on the radio anymore. You have to actively seek it out because it's completely out of fashion. So when I'm mentioning my colleagues at work, they are a bit younger than me, so they are in their 20s, and a lot of those bands that I think are kind of, you have to know them. Yeah, these great rock bands, they have no idea who they are.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. That's true. So they are not paying attention to the rock heroes. Yeah.
Yeah, and
So
I mean they are not happening. You don't see them on TV. You don't hear them on the
yeah. Yeah.
radio. You certainly don't go into record stores anymore where you would see their albums. So I can't even blame them for that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but we'll see.
Yeah, but at least some bands are popular. I think also among young people like Idols or the Viagra Boys. I mean, those are two contemporary rock bands that are really cool to me. But I'm not sure if they really appeal to young audiences that are younger than 20. Not sure about that.
Are there any popular? I mean, I have heard their names, but I don't really know them.
I think I don't have the numbers ready, but I think they are quite popular, at least in the UK and also the States, I think. But I have to look that up. That should be interesting. But
Yeah,
yeah, but those two bands pop up to me if I think about good contemporary rock bands.
yeah.
So
Sad.
yeah,
I mean, not sad that they pop up, but
yeah,
the state of rock music.
yes, yes.
But even back when rock music was still popular, there was a lot of shitty rock music, and one genre that was especially shitty to me was Gothic metal. I mean, there are a couple of bands that I like. Paradise Lost, they started as a death metal band or a doom death band, and I think even later on, when they were getting more commercial, they still did some good stuff. Um, Typo Negative, we already talked about them in a different video, but then you had these bands like Theater of Tragedy, and they are probably the most popular, still being very popular, Nightwish. Um, and this is a kind of music I don't get. I mean, I don't have that much sympathy for this dark wave and gothic stuff. It's not really my aesthetic. But then these bands, they like Nightwish, they do this very symphonic stuff. So they have these women in nightgowns on stage and singing these romantic lyrics with pompous arrangements around them. Um, and yeah, I have like with these power metal bands I talked about in the beginning. I have a hard time to accept that this is metal, and like I said before, I don't want to gatekeep and say it's not metal, but it has nothing to do with what I like about the sound, and I don't like this aesthetic. I think it's kitschy and weird. Okay, it's probably more aimed at women and girlfriends, so that metal guys can take their girlfriend with them to a concert. Um, and the bands know what they are doing, so I have no problem with Nightwish being popular, but I wouldn't touch this music with a 10-foot pole. So I don't understand it at all.
Uh, yeah, it's not a genre I like either. So okay, so my next pick is more. It's not really that I hate the band or I find the band annoying, but there was a moment in time. I think around 98. I didn't look it up. I'm sorry about that, but it is when Evanescence came up with their big hit "Bring Me to Life." Yeah, and it was within the height of new metal, and this kind of rap rock was brought into popular culture, and you have to bring this hip hop vibes into rock music. And I think this song was so, I mean, it was well executed, I give him that, but this also felt so calculated to me. I mean, let's bring kind of a rapper into this song, and yeah, Amy, the singer, she's a really great singer of Evanescence. Yeah, is singing a great melody, and in a very I don't know, not in a tasteful style, not really in a. He's just rapping like Fred Durst would rap above it.
Yeah.
I thought this was so I don't know, this was so calculated and kind of cheap to me that I hated this song. Yeah.
But I think that the label forced
Yeah,
this
yeah.
rap on them,
I
right?
wanted to bring this up now. Yeah,
Yeah, sorry.
the label forced them kind of or brought it up. They wanted to do this, and it obviously worked. But to me, they totally took the integrity of the band. So because I mean, this sound was so was so popular back in the day, and I have nothing against hip hop, yeah, but I really did not like how forcefully they tried to bring this into rock music and make a cool sound and appeal to the youth. It was also with with many rap metal bands, and this genre, kind of this fusion of rap and metal, was often called crossover. Was what kind of crossover is kind of a term that is used to describe a creative union of different styles, yeah. But what is creative about doing rap and metal, yeah? And you have kind of a fix, yeah, you know how, you just know what to do, and you just do it, yeah. That's, I don't know, it
Yeah, and
felt
most
cheap
of
to me.
these these I guess the only guy that, or one of the very few guys who know how to do it, was Zack de la Roca,
Yes, totally, yeah.
um, because he could rap, but
He was a real rapper. Yes.
most of these white guys like Fred Durst, they were rapping like it was still 1983. You know, this call and response type.
it
It's just sounded. It was, there was nothing artful
I
or
mean,
lyrical about it.
anyone can achieve this kind of rapping flow if you try to. It's not really
Yeah,
that hard. Yeah,
yeah.
I wouldn't. Sorry, but I wouldn't call Fred Durst a rapper. So,
No, not at all.
and yeah, and yeah, this and I think this song is a good example for the state of the music industry back then. And yeah, this annoyed me so much, and I'm sure Evanescence have much better songs, and it's not really my style, but I'm sure they're a good band, and they can do better than this.
Yeah. But it was I looked it up. It was 2003.
Okay,
Hard
cool.
word for a German. So yeah, and Amy Lee fits a little bit into what I just said about this Gothic metal stuff, because I mean, I have to say I have a soft spot for this "Bring Me Back to Life" because I like the hook of the song. It's very earwormy and catchy.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, she was also playing into this, you know, this gothic beauty, walking around in gowns, you know, looking dreamily into fountains,
Yes. Yes.
and kind of you know, she always made the impression you had to protect her, and she needs a knight that comes on his horse and saves her from the dragon. So this was all very yeah. I don't know if she wanted to be portrayed that way, because I think she was actually a pretty cool person. What I've read about her,
Yeah, I
but
think so too.
this always annoyed me when women were kind of yeah, framed this way. You know, these dreamy wounded princesses.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean the visuals have always been very important in goth music. I'm sure she also had a saying in this, but yeah, but I'm not so sure. Yeah, I'm not really
Yeah,
that familiar with the band.
yeah,
So
yeah. I'm not too, and I'm pretty happy about it.
so and Josh Freese drummed on this track.
Oh, okay.
Just an extra, yeah.
Yeah,
But he wasn't. I read in an interview he wasn't very keen on this kind of music either.
yeah.
I mean, he comes from he's a very versatile drummer, but has actually a punk rock background because he drummed in the Vandals back then.
Mhm.
So and became
Yeah.
this super famous studio drummer.
Was a job, right?
Yeah,
Paid the bills.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Anything to add?
I have rented enough. Now I'm calm for
Okay.
the weekend and
Okay.
can relax. I need a cup of tea right now.
Yeah. And I need a coffee. Okay. So This was our rant is over now. So now you have the time. If you liked it, please subscribe to our channel or give us a thumbs up. We would really appreciate this, and follow us around. There will be more Rock Kaput episodes coming up about such issues. Ranting is important also, but also a lot of love. We see you very soon, and please join us again. See you.
And don't listen to Glory Hammer. Bye.
Okay. Bye.